Plank. Presented by Jeep. Starts now.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for stopping by. It's week 4 of The Plank. John Sabol alongside our guest host. You've been hearing him all season long when he would call in. Tampa Bay Times beat reporter Greg Auman joining us here in for our Tom Korn, who's out for the week. And Greg, thanks for coming by.
Oh, glad to be here. Thanks for being here, John.
We're going to recap the disastrous game last week in Atlanta. We're going to preview the Steelers game. In the second block of the show, sports director from WTAE in Pittsburgh, Andrew Stockey, will call in, talk about the Steelers game. We'll throw him some questions, figure out their injury issue, because the Bucs have their injuries. We'll touch on those in just a second, but the Steelers defense is just as depleted. We're going to talk to him as well. We're going to have a fantasy segment later on in our third segment talking about there's a lot of buys going on this week, folks. So who should you sit? Who should you maybe try to pick up at the last segment? We're going to have all those answers. And then, of course, we're going to take your tweets and calls. And so to get on board here with us, we'll lay it out for you. You can call us at 813-367-0171. You can also get in touch with us via Twitter using the hashtag #ThePlank. You can get in touch with Greg with your Twitter handle. Greg, want to give that out?
Sure. It's just my name, Greg Auman, G-R-E-G-A-U-M-A-N.
And then mine is at John_Sabol. We'll be taking your tweets and phone calls. But first, let's get right into the disastrous game last Thursday, a week ago from today. You know, it seems like it was a week ago, but boy, that's still fresh in all of our minds how bad it was. Greg, you were there. You saw it firsthand.
Yeah, talking to players, talking to coaches this week, they just want to get it out of their memory. And the easiest way to do that is to play another game. Like you said, disastrous type game, about as worse as you can imagine. The Bucs go down 56-0 at one point in Atlanta. Offense and defense struggling. The final score is 56-14. They just avoided it being the most lopsided loss in their history.
Yeah, the Atlanta score 56-0 going into the fourth quarter, the second largest shutout since the Super Bowl era in 1966. I read that is just so bad. And the Bucs have had their fair share of shutouts or bad losses in their history.
Right. To say that something is the worst in Bucs history is indeed to say something. They have never been as far behind as they were at the start of that quarter.
So many things went wrong in that game. Josh McCown injured his thumb. Mike Glennon came in, played fairly well, but, you know, the Falcons' defense probably let up a little bit, but Glennon still showed some great signs that we saw last year. And McCown, give us the very latest on his injury and then all the other injuries that they gave out the report this afternoon.
Yeah, if there was any hope of Josh McCown playing this week, you don't have to worry about that now. He's got a thumb injury that's severe enough they're going to sit him out this week. He wants to get back. He's doing all the exercises and training he can to get his thumb back to where he can play. For now, they're going to go with Mike Glennon. Obviously, Mike came in week 4 last year and started the whole rest of the season. So has as much experience as you can ask a second-year quarterback to have. And now it's just getting used to a new offense and new people around him here this second season.
And, of course, Mike Glennon, this time around, it's almost a year ago to the day when the whole Josh Freeman issue happened last year.
Right. There are a lot of parallels, not necessarily that you want to make to last year, but last year you had a quarterback for 3 weeks. Obviously, last year was ineffectiveness and not injury. And Josh McCown could come back and play, but Mike Glennon has an opportunity again to prove that he can be the starter long term and to try and convince the Bucs they don't need to invest in a younger quarterback in next year's draft, too.
And remember, we want to hear your thoughts regarding the quarterback change as of right now and any other Bucs information and news and questions you have for the man who knows all about the Buccaneers in Greg Auman. Remember the number on your bottom of your screen there. Call us 813-367-0171. You can also use the hashtag #ThePlank on Twitter. And, you know, we talk about Mike Glennon. He spoke earlier this week. He talked about how this time around is different, and so did Lovie Smith. We have a soundbite from that earlier this week about them talking about it and how, you know, players in the NFL need to step up, and Lovie Smith has all the confidence in the world in Mike Glennon. And if we can get a talk and listen to that soundbite here in just a second, you'll hear what we're talking about with Lovie Smith and Mike Glennon.
Mike is one of the guys that went into the game without a lot of reps last time we played and did a decent job. Having a full week to get, he should be even more prepared. Football teams feels good about Mike leading us.
You know, I didn't know what to expect then. I know what it's like to play now. I know what it's like to go out there and, you know, get hit by those defensive linemen. I know what it's like to throw a touchdown and everything in between. So, you know, a lot more confident, a lot more comfortable than I was a year ago today.
Well, and I pose this question to you, Greg. How confident are you that Mike Glennon can go ahead and lead this offense now?
No, I think he's been in this position before, and he's handled it almost as well as you can ask a rookie to handle it. To have a year last year that didn't result in the wins that Mike Glennon would have liked to have, but threw for 19 touchdowns, threw for only 9 interceptions. And I think Mike Glennon has a better cast of of characters around him, better people to throw to. He only had 3 games with a healthy Doug Martin last year. So I think he's in better position to find success if things can get healthy again on both sides of the ball for the Bucs.
And we're posting multiple questions tonight. We can also hear about Marcus Arroyo's situation, as we heard earlier this week, the news about Jeff Tedford. A lot of people are wondering, how confident is Marcus Arroyo's play calling? Will it get any better this week? Call us. We want to hear from you, the Bucs fans, 813-367-0171. We'll hear from Arroyo in just a bit. But real quick, Greg, what are your thoughts on that whole thing? There's been a lot of speculation, a lot of questions regarding that whole situation.
Yeah, and it's been an awkward couple of weeks not knowing how Jeff Tedford's going to be. Obviously, Jeff Tedford has had a heart procedure, had an angioplasty right before the season started, and each week there's been daily questions as to when Tedford would come back, who would handle play calling. Now the Bucs know moving forward that Jeff Tedford won't be there, that Marcus Arroyo will be the guy in charge in terms of making the play calls. Lovie Smith is quick to emphasize that the entire offensive staff will be involved in game planning and making those decisions, but it's definitely some certainty where there's been uncertainty for Marcus Arroyo moving forward.
And I know it's early, but do you think we see Jeff Tedford at some point this season?
Lovie Smith was fairly clear yesterday that they're moving forward as if they don't expect Jeff to come back. I'm sure something could change and they could make a decision later, but right now, for the rest of this season, I think they'll move forward with the coaches they have.
The rest of the season could pose some major issues with the Bucs because they're in Pittsburgh. We're going to preview the game a little bit. Then they go to New Orleans, and then they're at home against Baltimore. Obviously, all 3 of those teams could have the potential of beating the Buccaneers. In my opinion, I feel like this is just the perfect storm to a bad season in the beginning. You know, I were talking about before the show about just how bad it is. You lose some quality players on the offensive line in training camp, defensive players in preseason. Now Tedford.
Yeah, for Lovie Smith, there was so much optimism a month ago in terms of how quickly he could turn things around for the Bucs, and he's had a lot of things come in the path of that. You think about losing literally your best player in Gerald McCoy, not playing with him last week, losing your leading rusher and the guy you'd be expecting in the backfield in Doug Martin. Josh McCown, who had stepped in and kind of had the full endorsement of the coaching staff to be the guy that would lead this team at quarterback, he's now gone. And you mentioned Tedford, too. This team has to get back healthy again, has to get some of its key characters back on the field and playing up to their full potential before you can even really think about how good a team this could be in the second half of the season.
We're watching video of Gerald McCoy. How's his hand?
Right now, I expect Gerald McCoy to play. I mean, they've run him through practice the last 2 days. He's had, he's going to go with some kind of a brace on his hand that obviously will keep him from being full strength Gerald McCoy. But I think he's ready to play, eager to find out what he can do. They've worked a lot in practice on trying to get him through double teams, through the normal extra amount of attention he gets as an elite defensive tackle. But I think you'll see him on the field and as close to being, the normal Gerald McCoy you'd want on a Sunday.
Oh, the question is, will we see the normal Gerald McCoy? Right. We want to hear from you guys, the fans, 813-367-0171. And there's so many issues going into this game that scare me because the Steelers are a little inconsistent on both ends, but lately they've been playing fairly well. Andrew Stockey, sports director from our ABC affiliate in Pittsburgh, WTAE, will be calling in our next segment. Looking back on this Falcons game, so many things went wrong. We don't want to touch all of it because we don't want to get in a bad mood. But you look at the fumbles issue and the turnovers, 5 turnovers. Do you really think that was just an admiration, or is this something that could be a problem?
Oh, no, it's something they have to get control of. I mean, Bobby Rainey had a great game the week before. Obviously, he's had 3 fumbles in a short amount of time. That's really limited his success and probably taken him out of the equation if Doug Martin is healthy this week. Josh McCown came in, and the best thing you could have said about Josh McCown last year is how well he did limiting his mistakes with the Bears. Had 1 interception in 224 passes last year. So for him to have 4 interceptions in the first 3 games, he's not going to be a factor anymore, and you have to hope that if you're a Bucs fan that Mike Glennon can have the same amount of small number of mistakes that he had last year as a rookie.
All right, well, that is going to be interesting to see because Mike Glennon performed really well last year under Greg Schiano, and he has the skills, need to be refined, of course. But let's go to the phones right now. We have our first caller on the line. Remember, you can reach us 813-367-0171. You're watching The Plank on abcactionnews.com, sponsored by Jeep. We have Jim on the phone. Jim, how are you doing?
Hey, guys. How you doing? Hey, great show, man. Love it. Call in almost every week. Want to make a comment about Glennon being quarterback. I'm glad to see it. I think, with our offensive line not being the greatest, him being maybe a little bigger guy, taller, a little more mobile, 10 years younger than McCowan, I think he can do more. I personally think McCowan was a mistake. Glennon didn't get a fair shot. I'm looking for positive things going forward with Glennon in the back. What do you think?
Well, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, just watching the game in what he was able to do in the second half Thursday, and again, you come to a game down 35 points. As John said, maybe you're not getting a defense their toughest, but I thought Mike Glennon showed a lot of poise and looked calm in the pocket. If anything, he looked more like the veteran than Josh McCown probably did in his first 3 games. McCown forced a lot of passes, tried to do things you wouldn't expect a savvy, careful veteran to do. But no, I think Mike Glennon acted like he'd been there before, didn't have a lot of pressure in that first situation. He'll come into a much different situation on Sunday in Pittsburgh with a chance to win against a tough defense, and I'll be curious to see how he handles that.
Jim, thanks for the call. Here's a question for you. If you look, and you've analyzed this play a lot, just from reading your tweets and talking with you, that play when Josh McCown got hurt was actually a missed block, correct?
Yeah, no, in fact, the 2 plays that led up to Josh McCown getting hurt were completely unblocked rushes. And it was some creativity from the Atlanta defense as well. They brought 2 safeties on a blitz on the play he was injured on. And the Bucs actually did a pretty good job of picking up the 2 blitzing safeties, but they neglected to get the defensive end on that side. And I thought Josh McCown had made a pretty smart, quick read in trying to get the ball to the side where the safeties came from. But unfortunately, Osi Umenyiora, the Falcons defensive end, just hit him as he threw. Looked like his thumb caught his shoulder pad and then a helmet. And again, that's going to be the last we see of Josh McCown for a couple of weeks here.
Well, if the offensive line continues to have those issues, like we've known, this is a line that's been pretty much piece by piece together. If we have those issues again, I mean, I know that was a freak accident, but could we see a Glennon having some problems with that too? Because Glennon and McCown both don't have very good blitz coverage.
Right, and what you have to be careful about for the Bucs is that the drop-off from McCown to Glennon is one thing. If Glennon goes down, they go all the way to Mike Kafka, who's the new backup quarterback. He hasn't been in an NFL game since 2011, so there'd be a much bigger drop-off there. The problem with the offensive line that I've seen so far has been more in communication than it has been any kind of physical breakdown. You have 5 offensive linemen that were playing for 4 different teams last year.
Including Logan Mankins.
Including Logan Mankins there on the field. Logan Mankins probably the best of the lot, but has only been here for a month, is still getting to know the guys around him. As they get that chemistry, as they get that familiarity, I think they'll be much better as an offensive line, but you can only get that with actual game reps live on the field like they'll be getting on Sunday.
Well, we have a tweet from Russ Walker at Florida Boy 869. He wants to know what's it going to take for the Bucs to win. I know we'll give you our picks later on, but let's just answer Russ Walker's question right now.
Sure, it won't take that much for them to get back into a level of play where they can hang with an opponent like Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh hadn't played well before the Carolina game. Had gotten outscored, I think, 50-9 over a span of like a game and a half. Obviously, they ended the game really strong against Carolina. As Lovie Smith will tell you, it starts with turnovers. It starts with limiting their own mistakes, forcing takeaways from the other team, as they have been able to do here and there, but they have to do a much better job of winning that battle before anything's going to happen with them being a competitive football team.
Well, this Steelers team has been inconsistent this year. You mentioned, look at the teams that they've played against. They barely beat the Browns in week 1, won at a last-second field goal. Then they got beat by the Ravens badly, and then out of nowhere they went out and shocked everybody on national TV and beat the Panthers. So the question is, which team's going to show up? We're going to have Andrew Stockey, the sports director at WTAE, our sister station in Pittsburgh. We'll answer all those questions, plus all of their injury news there, too. It's funny because these two teams almost mirror each other in the defensive injuries and also the inconsistencies and then expectations, too. So that's going to be interesting to see. And if you look at the Buccaneers right now, where they are, they have, the third time in the last 6 years started 0-3. Just not a good spot for them to be in.
Right, and it's one of those things. They've been there before. It's not something you want to get used to. Last year, obviously, it took them until 0-8 before you saw the team kind of catch themselves and come back and finish 4-4 in the second half. They don't want to wait that long. They've seen how this can escalate and snowball even in the first half of a season. So, no, they want to get that win right out of the way. Once you get that pressure gone, it's a much easier locker room. It's a much looser group of players, and that's what they want moving forward.
And we both saw that last year and what happened there, and finally get that big monkey off your back. And then they still routed out a few wins last year. So it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to be talking more Buccaneers football throughout the night right here on The Plank. We want to hear from you guys, the fans. You can reach Greg and I at 813-367-0171. You can tweet us using the hashtag #ThePlank. You can tweet at Greg Auman and at John_Sabol. We're just getting started here in week 4 of The Plank, presented by Jeep. We'll be back after this.